Time to catch up with the business. Aaron is with us now. Some challenging times right now for Air France, Aaron.
Challenging with a capital C, Lucy, indeed, yeah. Thanks, let me explain. Hello there, yeah, Air France has been unveiling some heavy job cuts today as it struggles with the challenging mix of low-cost competition, of course, high operating costs, and a legacy of some pretty troublesome industrial relations. Take a look at this. Almost 3,000 jobs are going to be axed, and French trade unions. Look at this. These are some pictures just today. Got a little argy-bargy there, didn't it? As you can see, but they've announced industrial action already, the unions. At this meeting there, you can see near Paris, protests, well, yeah, certainly turned violent as union members showed their frustration at the cuts announced by management. Well, the national carrier merged with KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines. We know that. It did that back in 2004. But boy, more than a decade later, it's struggling to make its business more efficient under an ambitious restructuring cost-cutting plan. Air France is pretty much being hammered on all sides by low-cost rivals on its regional routes, certainly within Europe, intra-Europe, and of course by the mighty Gulf carriers on its long-haul routes, the Gulf carriers being the likes of Emirates, Etihad, Qatar. And to make matters worse, there are simmering tensions between bosses and its pilots. Last year, a 2-week pilot strike at Air France, the longest in more than 20 years, cost the airline an eye-watering, look at that, $25 million every single day that strike went on. Okay, let's get more. John Grant is an airline expert with OAG and joins us. John, always great to have you in the studio. Hey, let's start with this because Air France was giving, the management was giving its workers two options. Stick with us on this restructuring, or you're going to have to face what they've just announced today. What was Air France, what was the management asking of its workers?
Improve productivity. It needs to get its costs down. It needs to make its aeroplanes and its people work harder and fly further. So, for example, the pilots on average, long-haul pilots are working about 5 to 6 days a month.
5 to 6 days a month?
A month at this moment. And the request from management was 100 hours extra flying a year, which equates to about 1 extra day each month. And that was rejected. The unions, pilots' unions say they have alternates, but...
Okay, we've just got these shots now while you're talking, John, of the executives, the Air France executives getting shirts ripped off. So, okay, let me just make this clear. Air France management, they have to compete, right? They've got to compete with the low-cost carriers. They've got to compete with the big Gulf carriers on their long-haul routes. So their long-haul pilots at Air France fly maybe 5 or 6 days.
That's correct.
Or work 5 or 6 days a month.
That's correct.
There's roughly 30 days in a month. They're asking their pilots to work an extra day a month.
That was one of the requirements, and there's requirements around cabin staff and around other parts of the business. But this is the overriding one, of course, because if the pilots say no, there are no air services, so it's a real struggle. It
is. What's the difference between, we've seen the US carriers who are also legacy, known as legacy carriers. They had high operating costs. They were unionized carriers. They've worked very hard over the past several years. They're now they're doing very well. They're making a good profit. So what's the difference? How did they break their union? Not break them, but how did they get the unions to agree?
Well, a bit of consolidation. So you saw people like United and Continental merging. But the pilots in the US have taken a longer-term, more pragmatic perspective and are looking at the long term. That consolidation accounts for the profitability they're seeing now. So they're reaping the rewards of that consolidation. Air France are probably 2 rounds behind the likes of British Airways and Iberia, who've gone through this pain.
That's the International Airline Group.
That's correct. You'll remember that they went through industrial disputes probably 4 or 5 years ago and have come out the other side and now are very competitive and will be very profitable at the end of 2015.
Well, if you talk... And you'd think they would look at these. They would, the unions with Air France would look at the US, would look at the IAG group and take lessons from that.
You would, wouldn't you?
You would. Air France is grouped with KLM, as we know, and we always go, oh, Air France, KLM. What's KLM doing? What impact is this having on KLM?
Well, it seems like the KLM unions have agreed in principle to accept the need for improved productivity, cost reductions and all of the things that need to be taking place. They're holding out and saying, well, agree to these when the Air France part of the business agrees to this as well. So we have a bit of a standoff that's going to develop in the coming months where one's saying we're ready to move and we'll change our working practices, but we need the guys in Paris to come along to the party as well.
Okay. John, unfortunately I've got to wrap it up, but strike action's been called, so more woes facing these
Sadly so, I think. Yep, sadly so.
John, always a pleasure. Short and sweet, but we appreciate your time. John Grant from OAG joining me there. Oh, and they've all gone black. They've all gone black. Okay.